Okay, go.
Hi, my name is Kathy Van Wickler, and I'll be presenting a demonstrative speech for you guys today. Our topic is American Sign Language and using that for children who are deaf and children with other special needs. As most of you work in public service of some kind, some of you are nurses or social workers or what have you. So I think it's really important to bridge a gap there between these two communities. So I'm going to start off with a question. Have you guys ever had a situation where you cannot understand someone? They're mumbling or they talk really fast or whatever the situation and you have no idea what they said. So I just want you to imagine what that would feel like to have that be the case day in and day out. And so I know that I've worked with children for 5 years in special ed, and I imagine constantly how frustrating it would be to be in their shoes. And so today I'd really like to focus on how frustrating that would be for them and just putting yourself out there a little bit to possibly bridge that gap in communication. So as many of you know already, I worked with behavioral issues in the school system for 5 years, as well as in-home care. I worked with many different disabilities that involve using ASL, and that includes Down syndrome, Asperger's and autism, cerebral palsy and other language impairments, and processing disorders. So I used ASL for quite a few years. Today I'm going to cover how non-deaf children can benefit from using ASL. I'm also going to demonstrate a few basic ASL signs which you guys can follow along with. Woo, participation. And I'll conclude with how to communicate as clearly as possible when you're using ASL. So let's get started. The use of ASL for non-deaf children is becoming more and more popular in the school system, as well as with toddlers and so on. And the reason why that's becoming more popular is because it can be really beneficial for someone with a processing disorder or someone who struggles with language. If you think about the commands that you're trying to use on a daily basis, for example in the classroom, if you're coming up to a kid with a language impairment and saying, please can you sit down, when they're already trying to process that they're in class, there's other children, they're sitting down, and then you come up and give them auditory. And that is really confusing and frustrating and can often cause an outburst. So a different way to do that would be to stand in front of them and just do the sign sit. And that's one thing for them to process. It's visual, not auditory, and it makes a much more simple command for them to follow and process. So the point is that the difference in hearing someone's voice versus seeing someone ask you something can create a whole different experience for someone who has auditory processing disorder or like disorders. So next I'm going to demonstrate a few basic signs, and I would love for you guys to follow along, but no pressure. Boys, no pressure. I'm going to start out with manners, because manners are important. So I'll start with please. Please is just an open hand, and you put it on your chest, and you go in a circle, and that's asking please. Thank you is a flat hand on your chin, pushed outwards. You have to be careful with this one, because if you go under your chin, that is actually cussing someone else. So don't do that. From the chin, out. No in ASL is kind of like a scoop into a crab claw. So if you wanted to add no thank you, then you would do scoop crab claw and then out. And then the one that we all need to know in probably every language is sorry. And that's just a fist, and it's similar to please. You just go the circle on your chest. Some commands that are useful to know when working with children especially. I showed you sit. That's 2 fingers on each hand. One looks like a bench, and one looks like a person sitting on the bench. So that's sit. More, give me more math, please. And then yes is a nodding fist, and no is like I showed you. And then really important when working with children, wait. Wait is very useful. So another thing that I just wanted to demonstrate for you is just some things that you can easily print out off the internet. These are commands such as food or hungry or bathroom. Those are really important to know when you're working with anyone that's hearing impaired, including adults. So, and then this is the alphabet. This is used for children who are deaf, not for children with processing disorder. It's basically used when you're talking to someone and they either can't read your lips and you don't know the sign. You would just spell it out then using the alphabet. So these are things that you can do, like just set up around your house, and you see them every day, and then you start to learn them as you go. So I'm going to move on now to how to be as clear as possible. There's some really hard things to transition into when you start using ASL. So when you're communicating with a child who's deaf, there's a lot of manners that you have to use that are easy to forget when you're talking to an average person that doesn't have these kind of impairments. So you want to be facing the person. You never want to turn away, and you want to make eye contact and use animated speech so that they can read your lips and they know that you're engaged in the conversation because they can't hear your tone. And tone is usually what tells someone that you're interested in what they're talking about. So that's really important. The other thing is not to speak when you're signing. It's rude to the people that are deaf, and when you're doing signs for children who have processing disorders, speaking is only throwing multiple things at them for them to process. If language is confusing to someone, then it's important to use as little as possible to communicate what you're trying to communicate. And then the last thing is that if you don't know the sign for something and you're signing and then you don't know the sign for something, you want to put your hands down at your side, because it's really easy to say 2 things at once. Like if you're saying how, this means what in sign language. And so your mouth would be saying how, but this is how in sign language. So you'd actually be literally saying 2 things at once. You're saying what and how at the same time. So if you don't know the sign, to indicate for them to read your lips, you just put your hands down at your sides. So I hope that you were able to learn a little bit more about communicating with children today who are deaf and have other special needs that need this type of communication. And I hope that it can bridge the gap a little bit in our schools and communities. I want to leave you today with a quote by Helen Keller, because it's fitting and because I feel that this quote encompasses the bravery that it takes to start using ASL. It's really hard to transition and have faith in yourself to start using any new language. It's also hard for the people who need it to ask for that and stuff. So bravery, I think, is really important in this aspect. So the quote is, "Security is mostly superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or it is nothing." Thank you so much.
Well said.